All right, so this is a suggestion via a channel member. Guys, let's check it out.
The Department of Justice is investigating the anti-ICE protesters who disrupted services at a church in Minnesota over the weekend.
But the state's attorney general claims the demonstrators and journalist Don Lemon, who was with them, did not break the federal law the DOJ is accusing them of. Doug Lazater joins us live from Washington with all the details.
Why would they do that, though?
Carly and Todd, good morning. This was an extraordinary escalation of protests in Minnesota.
Not really a reason.
Storming of a church. Now, here's how this played out. As former CNN host Don Lemon joined with protesters who believed one of the pastors at a church in St. Paul had connections to ICE.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world.
Oh my God, guys! Wait a second.
Respectful. Please don't push me, though. We're here to worship Jesus. Yes. That's why we're here. Yeah. Okay, that's why we're here. Okay. That's what we're about.
Don't you think Jesus would be understanding
we're about
and love these folks?
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them as a Christian?
No one is willing to talk.
Oh my, Don Lemon, why are you here? Okay, just what are you doing right now, bro? Like, this is absolutely uncalled for. Like, I have no idea what laws are going to be violated. I'm not sure because, again, the churches are generally open to the public, and they're not there with any type of like weaponry or anything like that. Understand this here. This is the first time I'm hearing this story here. All right, so this is like absolutely my first encounter. But listen, bro, if they're in here having a church service and you then say, I'm gonna go ahead and walk inside of it, generally there's some type of like decorum where you would sit down and maybe later if you wanted to have a conversation with the pastor, you could probably do that. But what you just did was interrupt the church services. Jeez, dudes, why are you doing this, Don Lemon? Like, what is the purpose of this, Don Lemon? Like, this is like, I would say this is on par with who he is, personally. This is on par with who he is. So you're under the impression that the overall preacher, the pastor himself, has some type of, I guess, insight to ICE or some connection with ICE. In what way? In what way does the preacher, pastor, have any type of like actual connection with ICE to the point where he's given a church service and then you break it? Guys, this is weird. All right, these people are weird. Either way.
Minnesota's attorney general says protesters who stormed that church did not violate what's called the Federal FACE Act, but the Justice Department may not see it that way.
What you saw there was anti-Christian, anti-law enforcement rioters storming a church in this country, and that's a violation of law, and we are absolutely investigating. Our Civil Rights Unit has already sent experts out to Minneapolis today. The Civil Rights Unit, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, DHS is investigating this because what you saw the fear in the eyes of the members of that church.
Now, Lemon, meantime, defended his actions, saying this in a statement: "It's notable that I've been cast as the face of a protest I was covering as a journalist, especially."
Okay, guys, really quickly. So when it comes down to the Federal FACE Act, freedom of access to clinic entrances. Oh, it also covers religious worship. Okay, so it came out in 1994. It's a U.S. federal law that criminalizes use of force, threats, or physical obstruction to block access to reproductive health services or places of worship. Okay. Okay. So basically what they're saying is you can't like enter into these structures, specifically if something is happening. Basically, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this here. And they're pushing back against it if it was an act that was basically enacted in 1994. I mean, it is what it is here. If you want to protest a church, I guess do that, but don't obstruct the entrance to the church, I guess, right? That's kind of how I'm reading this here. And the same thing with any of these like Planned Parenthood type of places. That's also the vibe I'm getting also. All right, let's continue.
Since I wasn't the only reporter there, that framing is telling. I stand by my reporting. Lemon has said that racism is a part of the ongoing immigration enforcement efforts. He has also said that some of his critics have a sense of entitlement based on white supremacy. Todd and Carl.
Yeah, the double down did not end there. Doug, thank you. For more on the double down from Don Lemon, let's bring in Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council, a former pastor and police officer. You got quite a resume there, Tony. Lemon doubling down in an interview, Doug alluded to this, following that church raid, saying, "This is not the type of Christianity I practice," and accusing that particular church of white supremacy. Your response, Tony?
Well, it's very telling. What we're seeing here
Guys.
is a very clear violation of the FACE Act, a law going back to Bill Clinton in the 1990s that was designed to protect
moderately
abortion clinics,
clear.
but Orrin Hatch put a provision
Right.
in there to protect churches. They violated it. But we have to understand there's something bigger here. This is the hostility toward religion in this country has been latent for some time. Now it has become blatant, this hatred toward God. And going back to something that House Speaker Mike Johnson said before the Parliament just about an hour ago, that what is taught in the classroom in one generation will become the ruling philosophy of the next generation in government. And that's what we see. This is what has been taught, this anti-Christian, anti-Western values to lead to a place where someone who claims to be a journalist charging into a church, interrupting a Sunday morning worship service. Like, this is something that we cannot tolerate in our country. Protest, yeah, fine. You can go on the street, stand out on the street. But when you're breaking into a church service, interrupting a worship service, we've crossed a new red line.
Yeah, you mentioned the speaker's speech.
That's
just
how I
moments
just
ago.
read the Federal FACE
He
Act.
issued the phrase, freedom will destroy
If it's
itself
there,
if it
it
has
is what it
no
is, guys.
purpose. That
Can't
is
do
a
it.
reflection on a historical speech made by a historical figure. I'm just blanking on it. I believe that was Margaret Thatcher. But he also emphasized the importance of moral and religious foundational support. You need that support to prop up that freedom. And Tony, you also invoked the FACE Act. I want to let the audience know exactly what it says. Quote, makes it a crime for someone who by threat of force or by physical obstruction intentionally injures, intimidates, or interferes with any person lawfully exercising or seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship. As you referred to the Orrin Hatch amendment to that law, Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon responding to Don Lemon, posting the following: a house of worship is not a public forum for your protest. It is a space protected from exactly such acts by federal, criminal, and civil laws. Nor does the First Amendment protect your pseudo-journalism of disrupting a prayer service. You are on notice. Do you think that everyone involved in this church invasion, Tony, needs to be prosecuted as a way to deter future incidents like this?
Yes.
I do think that those who violated the law need to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Now, you saw Pastor Parnell having this conversation with Don Lemon. This is not even an argument here. In this conversation, but very clear. This is a worship service. We're worshiping the Lord Jesus Christ. You're welcome to come in and be a part of that worship service, but you're not free to disrupt it and to intimidate us in what we're doing. And so I think the law needs to be enforced. As a police officer back in the 90s, when they were using this against pro-lifers, I've long advocated
that's what I was about to point out.
Those who don't like the law, if you want to make it go away, apply it to the left. And I think this is the opportunity to do that, to ensure that religious freedom in this country is fully protected.
They don't want to do that,
this
guys.
is one way to do it.
Same church, different pew, no pun intended to that last answer you just gave and your original answer. But why do you think the so-called tolerant left has become so intolerant of religion on the whole, specifically Christianity and Judaism, Tony?
Well, because there is a standard, a biblical truth. Christians, this church is a Southern Baptist church affiliated with the Southern Baptists. They still believe the Bible. They believe the Word of God. And worship, we often hear about the freedom of worship. It's not just the ability to go to a church on a Sunday morning. It's the ability to live your life according to your faith. That's the problem that many have with Orthodox Christianity or Judaism, is that people actually live by their faith. They believe that God defines what life is. He defines what human sexuality is. He defines what marriage is. And that is really the bottom line, I think, like people like Don Lemon have a problem with, is that there is transcendent truth by which people live their lives.
Religion is such an important foundation in whatever you do.
Okay, guys. Okay. Listen, hold on. So now after just basically glancing over the Federal FACE Act, yeah, it makes sense here. I understand this here. When it comes down to which parties are more likely to kind of protest things. So for example, when it comes down to the right, they're most likely going to be protesting Planned Parenthood and all these other reproductive based type of organizations. And what did the federal government do? Made it so they can basically no longer do that, right? And then obviously the caveat, when the bill was obviously signed here, they said, okay, hold on. If that's the case, then you can't have the left protesting, mainly Christians, right? Which are most likely going to be on the right. All right. So it was a give and take here. Okay, that's what this is here. If we can't protest what we want to protest, then you can't protest what you want to protest. That was basically the agreement signed on the Federal Face Act. Basically, you have no ability to obstruct the ongoing activity of any of these places legally. And what the guy just said here was intriguing. Like, if you want the law changed, make it affect the left. Yeah, that's basically what this is here. Because now, if the left even tries to make any solid push, all right, to kind of lift the Federal Face Act, they do not know what they're doing to these Planned Parenthood type of organizations. All right, immediately, if you want the right to protest, go out. Meaning, if you want the right to have the right to protest, okay, then they're going to go straight headfirst to these places. And again, the federal law basically dictates that they can't do that like that, right? And that's basically the only thing they're going to actively protest large scale. All right, you and I both know this here. All right. So what are you going to do here? You're going to fight to kind of lift the Federal Face Act? Go for it. Okay. It will be in your worst interest. Now, what Don Lemon did here was absolutely silly. This is not like, actively actual journalism, guys. It just felt like you were part of the absolute riotous bunch, right, who are out here trying to dox, let's say, people's locations and actively cause chaos, right? That's what you're doing. You now joined them specifically to break into a church while church service is going on. Listen, you could have just waited for that service to be done. They would have let you in the building in the first place. They would have just let you in. Leave all your nonsense outside and have a conversation, specifically if you wanted to have a conversation at least with the preacher, pastor. I have no idea what they're called, guys, but the one of these two words, right? If you want to have that conversation, then have that conversation, guys. All right? Because this is not really the way to go at all. It makes your point immediately irrelevant. Like how are you going to make me care about your problems if this is the type of thing that you do, knowing, or maybe not even knowing, let's say that there was a Federal Face Act. Understand this here. I didn't know about that until the video started. I had to do my research while the video was playing. All right, so I understood exactly what that was. And yeah, if the act is there, it is what it is here. Yes, they qualify for it. In fact, did they know that they were going to do this in 1994 when they created it? No, they didn't. All right, but they did it, and they're going to be penalized to the fullest extent. And yes, anyone who entered into that church doing that should in fact be sent to prison for some federal crime. Probably a hate crime. That's kind of the vibe. Guys, do you want to watch movies with me? I never actually thought to promote it over here, guys. But if you guys do want to watch it, guys, we have hundreds of movies, and I mean hundreds of movies that we've reacted to. You guys can come watch them with me if you want to, along with many TV shows. Currently, we're working on the show Dexter, along with Vikings, and we have a lot of series that are already completed. But if you guys do want to watch it with me, the link is in the description. Everything's available at the second tier. But of course, if that's not your thing, guys, don't worry. Right? Listen, like and subscribe.